You are 26 years old and you work in a gray office on the fourth floor of a municipal building downtown. Your title is Assistant Budget Analyst for the Department of Public Works. Nobody remembers your name at staff meetings. You eat lunch alone. You make $51,000 a year, and every evening you take the 6:40 bus home because you cannot afford to park. This is your life, and you have accepted it the way people accept weather, without complaint, without much hope, and without any real belief that it could be otherwise. Then one Thursday afternoon, your supervisor calls you into his office and tells you that you've been flagged. You don't know what that means. He slides a folder across the desk and tells you to take it home, read it, and come back tomorrow with a decision. You read it on the bus. It contains documentation of a city contract worth $11 million that was quietly redirected 18 months ago to a construction firm that does not appear to exist. The signatures on the approval forms are forged. 2 of them are your supervisors. One of them, you notice with the specific cold clarity that changes everything, is yours. You never signed anything. You never even saw this contract. But your name is on it, authenticated, notarized, and dated. By the time you get home, you understand. You didn't find the fraud. You were placed inside it. You are either an asset or a liability, and tomorrow's meeting will decide which one. That night you don't sleep. You think about calling a lawyer, calling the police, calling anyone. But every number you consider leads back to the same city, the same system, and you do not yet know who owns what inside it. So you go back in the morning. You sit across from your supervisor, and a man you've never seen before is standing by the window in a suit that costs more than your monthly rent. He does the talking. He tells you that you are smart, that you have seen exactly what they needed you to see, and that the only question left is whether you are going to be useful or unfortunate. He is not threatening you loudly. He is threatening you the way the city itself operates, quietly, procedurally, with paperwork already in place. You say yes. You don't know what you're saying yes to yet, but you say it. His name is Castellan, and he does not work for anyone you can name. Over the next 3 months, he teaches you how the city actually functions, which is to say he teaches you how it has always functioned beneath the version that appears in budgets, press releases, and civics textbooks. The real city is a system of debts. Every judge sitting on the municipal bench has something they needed at some point. A case that disappeared, a relative who was protected, a career that was built on a foundation that wouldn't survive scrutiny. Every senior cop in the department has taken something, approved something, or looked away from something that has been documented and filed. Every elected official in the city has either accepted money through a channel they cannot explain or made a decision that benefited someone they cannot afford to name publicly. Castellan has the files. He has had them for years. Your job, going forward, is to learn the system well enough to operate it yourself, because Castellan is moving to the next city, and this one needs a manager. Within a year, you are no longer an analyst. You work for a private urban consulting firm that does not advertise and whose clients are entirely referral-based. Your official function is infrastructure assessment. Your real function is coordination. You learn quickly that power at this level is almost entirely administrative. It is not dramatic. Nobody is being threatened in parking garages. The actual mechanism is simpler and colder. You know what people need, you know what they owe, and you route resources accordingly. A judge needs her son's DUI handled before it reaches a court that would require documentation. You make a call. 2 months later, she rules in favor of a zoning variance that allows a development project worth $40 million to break ground. You do not tell her these things are connected. She already knows. That is the agreement, and it has always been the agreement, and she signed it long before she ever met you. You are 29 when you handle your first serious test. A detective named Orozco has been building a case quietly for 8 months, working off the books, keeping records on a personal drive that he has not shared with his department because he knows his department well enough not to. His case touches 3 council members, a deputy chief, and a real estate developer whose firm has been the primary recipient of city infrastructure contracts for the last 7 years. Orozco is not dirty. He is the rarest thing in this city, a person who took the job because he believed in it and has not yet been given a compelling enough reason to stop. You spend 2 weeks assessing your options. You could expose something in his past, but his file is clean in a way that is almost inconvenient. You could move him, transfer him to a division where the work would bury him, but that creates questions. Instead, you do something more precise. You find the one person in his life who has a problem you can solve. His brother owes $60,000 to a private lender whose terms are written in a way that could be construed as criminal if the right prosecutor decided to look at them. You make sure the debt disappears. You don't contact Orozco. You never speak to him. 3 weeks later, he transfers voluntarily to a department 2 cities over. His wife's family is there. He frames it as a personal decision. It is. You just arranged for it to be the easiest one he ever made. By the time you are 32, you understand that the hardest part of what you do is not logistics. It is maintaining the belief in the people you manage that they still have agency. A mayor who knows he is controlled is a dangerous mayor. A mayor who believes he is making choices within a system that occasionally requires compromise is a cooperative one. You spend enormous energy manufacturing the feeling of autonomy. You never tell anyone what to do directly. You present situations. You offer paths. You make certain that the path you need them to take is also the one that costs them the least personally, at least in the short term. You are good at this. You are better at it than Castellan was, and you know this because the city runs more quietly than it did when he handed it to you. There is a councilwoman named Reyes who was elected on a reform platform and who is, 18 months into her first term, still behaving as though the platform was a commitment rather than a communication strategy. She is asking questions about the infrastructure contracts in public committee meetings. She is requesting documents through official channels. She is doing everything right according to the version of the city that is supposed to exist, which makes her precisely the kind of problem that cannot be solved with the tools you normally use, because using those tools on someone with her visibility would itself generate questions. You decide to let her find something. You give her access, through 3 layers of bureaucratic friction that make it feel earned, to documentation that confirms low-level corruption in a department that you have already decided to sacrifice. 2 deputy directors resign. She holds a press conference. She is credited, genuinely, with a significant accountability win. You watch it on your laptop in the office and feel nothing except the particular satisfaction of a complex operation resolving cleanly. She stops pulling threads because she believes she has found the thread. She hasn't. You gave her a loose and attached to nothing. At 34, you are approached by a man who represents interests that are not local. He is from the kind of organization whose name you have heard, but whose structure you have never been fully certain of, something positioned between a private equity architecture and a political infrastructure fund. He wants to know if the city can absorb a specific legislative outcome without generating public resistance significant enough to derail it. He is not asking for something violent or overtly criminal. He is asking for something that will be legal, documented, and entirely unremarkable to anyone who does not already know what to look for. He is asking, in other words, for exactly what you have spent 8 years building the capacity to provide. You take the meeting. You take 3 more. You negotiate terms that compensate you at a level that changes what your life can look like going forward, and you deliver the outcome he asked for inside of 4 months. You have moved from managing a city to being a resource that larger systems can call on. This is not a promotion you applied for. It is a natural consequence of competence in a world where competence at this level has very few hiding places. The thing nobody tells you about operating at this scale is that the danger doesn't come from outside the system. It comes from within it. The people most likely to dismantle what you've built are not investigators or journalists or reformers. They are the people you manage who, over time, begin to feel that the arrangement is no longer serving them adequately. A judge who has been reliable for 6 years suddenly has a different calculus because his retirement is approaching and he has begun to think about what the record of his career looks like if certain things surface posthumously. A deputy chief who has taken your resources for a decade now has enough of his own that he no longer needs you the way he did, which means the leverage has redistributed. You spend as much time managing the evolution of these relationships as you do managing the operations they support. There is never a moment when the architecture is stable. It is always either being built or quietly eroding, and your job is to make sure the erosion never exceeds the rate of construction. You are 36 when the first thing goes genuinely wrong. A journalist has been working a story for 2 years and has, through a chain of connections you were not monitoring carefully enough, arrived at a source who knows something real. Not everything, but enough. The story is scheduled to publish in 11 days. You know this because you have a contact at the publication, and the contact has given you the timeline and, more critically, the specific claims the story intends to make. 3 of them are accurate. 2 are accurate enough that the inaccurate framing around them will not protect you if the accurate core is examined seriously. You have 11 days to either discredit the source, alter the context of the claims, or create a competing event large enough to absorb the story's impact before it can consolidate into a narrative. You work the problem. You do not sleep more than 4 hours on any of those 11 nights. You call in debts you have been holding for years. You make agreements that cost you more than you would normally spend. The story publishes. It is significant for 6 days, generates 2 official inquiries, and then is effectively displaced by a budget crisis at the city level that requires the full attention of every political journalist in the market. The budget crisis is real. You did not manufacture it, but you knew it was coming and you knew when, and you chose not to defuse it because you needed it precisely when it arrived. That is the difference between reacting to a city and running one. You are still running it. The inquiries are ongoing. The Reyes situation has evolved in ways you did not fully predict. She is now being positioned for a higher office, which means she will be both more visible and, potentially, more useful if the relationship can be properly calibrated. You are in conversations you cannot fully describe even to yourself about what the next phase of what you do looks like, about whether the city you have been managing for a decade is still the right scale for what you are capable of, and about what it costs to move up without leaving behind the infrastructure that has made you impossible to remove so far. You take the 6:40 bus sometimes, not because you have to, because it is the only hour of the day when no one who knows what you are can reach you, and you can sit in a seat that costs nothing and watch a city move past the window that does not know it belongs to you, and feel for exactly 22 minutes the specific quiet of being anonymous. You are not sure how much longer that will be true. You are not sure how much longer you want it to be.